Hi, my name's Alex. I run Booster Cartel. We are a silver tier bubble development partner, and we offer Figma design services and bubble development services for your SaaS business. I wanted to give you a rundown of our bubble development process. I want to jump right into it and show you the flow from app idea, from just having idea all the way to launch, how the process works. So to keep this as short as possible, I'm going to just jump right into it. So we start out with an app idea, and that's probably where most of you are at right now. What we need to figure out right away is it feasible or not on Bubble. So a lot of times you can obviously ask me for this or use ChatGPT or something like that to figure out, are all of these features feasible on Bubble? Many times it is, or at least there's some API or plugin that we can use to make it work. Is it feasible? Yes, no. If it's not, we need to make some changes based on market research. I have a SaaS idea article that I'll link in the description so that you can just use the ideas or something similar to what I recommend. So check that out if you're having trouble with app ideas, or you can just scrap the idea, move on to the next thing. If it is feasible, yes, we want to make sure it is validated in the market, meaning, is there a demand for this type of service? If there's already something similar in the market, that's validation enough. We know that is a thing that users demand in the marketplace. So there's some SWOT analysis you might want to do. There's some market research. Again, is it validated? Yes, no. If it's not, make changes based on market research. Go to my SaaS ideas article just to give you a bunch of ideas there. And I update that article regularly just to give you some new ideas, or scrap the idea, move on to the next thing. If all of that sounds too complicated or you want help with that, you can go right over here and we offer a done for you consultation. Basically, we'll go on a Zoom call. We'll figure out exactly what you're wanting to do for your app or for your SaaS. We'll have a little information gathering there, and I'll help you validate it and make sure that it's feasible on Bubble. But the first thing we need to do is we need to get our general overview. And so, like I said, we can either do that through a done for you consultation, and I'll link to where you can schedule a consultation with me. Done with you, we offer an MVP calculator, where we can give you a estimate based on the features that you have. So check out the link in the description for that. And then done yourself, and I'll link in the description as well an AI explainer video showing you how to use ChatGPT to build that general overview yourself. There's a list of things that we need to see before I can give you that cost and timeline estimate, because that's where what a lot of our clients are wanting to know right away. They assume it's going to be doable on Bubble. How long is it going to take? How much does it cost? And without a pretty specific overview, it's hard to give an estimate. So if it's a super minimal, maybe you have an app already, there's a few features. It could be anywhere from a few $100 to a few thousand. For some of our middle-sized apps, it's usually maybe 2,000 to 6,000 or something like that. For our full builds, usually with design and development, it ends up being anywhere from like 6,000-7,000 up to 20,000, usually somewhere in the middle or on the lower end of that. If it's a really, really big app, KYC, a lot of integrations, complex workflows, a ton of pages, might be on that higher end, closer to 20,000, but most people are in that lower range. So once we have that general overview, then I'm able to give you that cost and timeline estimate. At that point, we're generally not the cheapest agency. So if you're looking for cheap development work, we're probably not going to be right for you. But if it makes sense for your budget and for your timeline, then we'll move over to building our MVP feature list. How we do that is I want to do a Zoom call with you, a strategy session where we're figuring out, and I'm guiding you, and we're also just trying to get some information. What is the most important features that we need to have in that MVP? So what I find more often than not is people the first time building their app, they want every feature in that first version of the app. And I think that's definitely the wrong way to do it. I think if you want to have your like goal feature list, all the features you could possibly imagine, that's going to take several months, maybe a few years. If you're, for example, if you're looking at a app like Airbnb or something like that, or DoorDash or any, those have been built over 10 plus years with millions of dollars of investment. So if you're going to try to match them one for features, a lot of times that's going to be a losing battle just because they've had so much time to develop it. But what we can do is identify a focused list of features that would be valuable to users or in a certain niche. And we want to refine that feature list as much as possible so we can get to the market quickly and have users provide feedback to us and help us come up with that future phases of development that we're going to do based off of what users are actually requesting. So we start with a narrow list of MVP features to get it to market quickly, and then we can add the nice to have or the complex AI or whatever future features we're wanting to do. Let's get to the market first, then add those features later. That's what I always recommend. So we're going to do some information gathering. I'll have a bunch of questions for you on a strategy session. I'm sure you'll have questions for me as well. After that strategy session, we're going to go through and I'll build for you an MVP feature list based off of all the information we talked about on our call. And we'll spend maybe a couple days refining that MVP feature list as much as possible, making sure I'm exactly on the same page as you. We're both on the same page for exactly what we're going to build in the MVP. Sometimes we get it right away if it's not that complex, or if it's something we've done similar before, maybe we know exactly what MVP feature list you should have. But more often than not, we're going to want to refine that. And I want to make sure I'm 100% on the same page for you for that scope of the MVP. So it might take a few hours, might take a few days to refine that and make sure that is perfect. Once we have the green light go ahead on that MVP feature list, then we'll schedule a proposal call. Usually it can be the following day after the strategy session, or maybe it's 2 days later or something like that, depending on people's schedule. And that's where we'll go over the full project report and proposal. That'll include all the details that you need, user types, Bubble database, Figma pages that we need, Bubble pages, reusable elements, all that stuff, user flows. It's much more detailed. Basically, what we do is we take that MVP feature list and expand and add detail. And so that's the point of building that MVP feature list. And that's why it's important to get it right, is so that we can build that project report and proposal out. And it's very, very accurate because we spent some time getting that right. So on that project proposal call, we'll go over all the details, make sure everything looks right. That includes the specific quote and timeline for your specific MVP. Now, if needed afterwards, sometimes it's ready to go. People are ready to go right on that call, or after the call or whatever. You need to think it over, make sure it's the right decision. Sometimes we need to refine that proposal further to add new features or maybe take them off or whatever we need to do. And that is what we do right after the proposal call, is take a few hours, take a few days, making sure that is perfect. It's exactly aligned with what you're looking to build. And then at that point, you either accept or, take that proposal, go to someone else, and it doesn't matter. You have that to use in the future. If you want to go with us, great. If not, that's 100% fine too. And so once we accept the proposal call, we'll start building the project roadmap. One thing I wanted to mention as well, it's not always applicable to every project, but if we're wanting to market this to new users, I always recommend building a hype or landing page as one of the first things we do, because we want to start getting the word out. And maybe you have a network or you have people in the industry that you're going to want to let them know and let them sign up early on. So we can even do that right after the strategy session. If this is something for sure you are going to do, either with us or somebody else, another agency, For sure, it's good to get that hype or landing page where we can start collecting a list of early users, first movers. We want to collect their name and email as soon as possible and start building up that list and nurturing that list. So if that is something at the strategy call, 100% sure you're moving forward with this, with us or not, then it would be appropriate to build that landing page right there. And then while we're figuring out the proposal, at least you have a landing page. Maybe you don't have to move forward with our proposal, but at least you have a landing page where you're collecting those names and emails. Or for sure, we'll want to do that after the proposal call, if it's appropriate for some people are building internal apps, so they're not going to need a landing page for it. So sometimes it's not for every project, but for the projects where it would make sense, we want to build that as early on as possible. So then we'll put together the project roadmap. We'll put that all into project management software. Typically, we use ClickUp or Notion or Trello, whatever it is appropriate for that project. And then we jump into the Figma design. Not every project needs a Figma design, but for the ones that do, especially when we have a lot of features, a lot of moving parts, we want to make sure that all of those features fit together nicely, and it's a good user flow. It's an intuitive user flow for new users that maybe aren't familiar with the app. It should be easy for them to update their profile picture or subscribe or whatever. We want to make sure all of that is very intuitive. There's a good user experience. And so that's where we want to spend a decent amount of time in that Figma design, not just making it look good, because that's relatively easy to do with just some standard styles and buttons, hover effects, all that stuff. We want to make sure that the layout and all the screens are intuitive, and we have all the screens finalized before we jump into Bubble, because I've seen it before where people have maybe 80% or so of the screens designed. They jump into Bubble, they start developing everything in there, and it becomes an issue once you hadn't thought through every single feature. Now you have to kind of like mangle it together. And I've seen a lot of projects fall apart because of not having a complete and finalized Figma design. So that's where it's always worth spending an extra few days or few weeks even in the design phase to get it right, to get all the user flows, all the screens, pop-ups, tabs, all that stuff finalized in Figma first before we jump into Bubble. It's totally worth it. So some people already have a completed design. Definitely will want to check that out, make sure it is actually completed. A lot of times there's most of the stuff in there or some of the stuff, but not everything is figured out completely in the Figma. And we definitely want to do that first because we want to, once we actually get into Bubble, we want to spend time developing and making sure the workflows are right and all that stuff. We don't want to try to figure out the design once we're already, halfway done in Bubble. So some people have completed designs already, and then we jump right into Bubble. For those who need a design, first we start with user flows. If somebody needs to log in for the first time, go through onboarding, what is that user flow going to look like? Coming up with a list of all the user flows and figuring out what all those steps are for all of the main user flows will help us identify all the screens, all the pop-ups, everything we need. So that's why we do the user flows first. It helps us identify each of those steps, each of those screens, each of those buttons. Then we're able to make rough sketches based off of those user flows and screens that we have identified. And it's also useful if there is a similar site or similar app, or maybe there's a similar page. The app's not similar, but the page layout is similar. It's good to identify those early on and say, hey, this is working well for this really popular app. We know it works good because somebody else is using it and it's working well. It's good to use those references to take what is working well and use it in our own app design. Once we have those done, we move into low fidelity wireframes. Basically what that means is there's no color on it. It's just the screen and the layout of the buttons and tabs and all that stuff. That helps us make sure we don't want to focus yet on making it look good. We want to make sure it is intuitive first. And so that's why we spend a lot of time. And this is where actually we spend most of our time, is making sure that low fidelity wireframe is intuitive. We got all the screens. We know how it's going to work. If you click this, you do that. You need to delete something, there's a pop-up to confirm we're deleting that. All that stuff, we spend a lot of time in there. And this whole Figma design process is very collaborative. So we're wanting to make sure we're building exactly what you want. So we need ideally daily feedback from you to make sure that we're building on the right track, we're building in the right direction. So we need at least daily feedback from you Monday through Friday on the progress of the Figma design. Once we have those low fidelity wireframes completed, then we're able to take the color, the logo, all the font that we've decided on, and make everything look pretty in the high fidelity wireframe. So, and that's relatively straightforward because we have the intuitive layout already with the low fidelity wireframes, and now we're just adding on hover effects, the standard button styles that we've already decided on. And that's actually relatively straightforward. Once you spend enough time getting the low fidelity wireframe, the layout right, the making it look good is pretty easy. And then, like I said, we want to finalize the design in Figma before we move over to Bubble. So that's where, if it's a very collaborative process, we'll make sure that we're talking with you every day. And then that's when we are able to finalize that design in Figma. Once that is done, then we start building out all those pages, reusable elements, all that stuff in Bubble. And like I said, if you have that completed design already, we're going up to Bubble there. Once we start building out those pages, then the first thing we do is add navigation workflows just so that we can click around. Think of a dashboard and we want to click through those tabs. We want to get all the navigation workflows set up first. If there are API integrations, Stripe, SendGrid, any other OpenAI API, we'll start getting those integrated as well to build those core features of the app. One other thing I wanted to mention is because we're a silver tier Bubble agency partner, we have access currently to Bubble's native mobile builder. It's not launched yet to the public, but we have early beta access to it. So depends when you're watching this video, but right now it's not available for anyone else, but we have that. So if you're looking to just build an iOS or Android app, or to build a web app and an iOS and Android native mobile app, we're able to do both of those things. So the only main difference, it's that same Bubble editor. You can have a web app and a mobile app in the same Bubble editor. The only difference is for the web app, we're building pages. And for the iOS and Android native mobile apps, it's called views. It's basically the same thing. There's just a little bit of difference there, but it's going to be the same Bubble editor. And rather than having to like wrap your app, which you used to have to do, you can actually launch your app to iOS, the Apple Play Store, directly from that Bubble editor. So it's a big, big improvement on Bubble's functionality. And so then we finalize the core features, make sure everything's working, and then it's more collaborative. So this process doesn't need to be that collaborative with you because we got so much done already. I still send daily updates, show you what's getting done, but we don't need a ton of feedback because we already know what we're building. That's where we spend that extra time in Figma to get it right. We know exactly what we're building now. Once we're getting closer to the end, then we need a little bit more collaboration from you, some feedback. Do you see any bugs? Are there any small changes that we have to make? That's where we finalize the features, and any revisions that we need to make, we do that there. Then once they're all done, we finalize the mobile responsiveness. We build it pretty much responsive the whole way, but we want to do any touch-ups that we need, make sure it is looking good on all screen sizes. So once that's ready to go, where you got all the revisions done, we're ready to launch to beta testers. And that is where that hype and landing page comes in. Now, again, not for every type of project would we want that, but that's where you're able to get the beta testers, start out. If you don't have that, then it's going to be you. It's going to be your people, colleagues. It's going to be friends and family, all that stuff, going to be the first beta testers. Or if you're running ads or have some type of Facebook group or whatever, you're going to want anybody you can start beta testing the site. And then we offer 30 days of bug fixing for 30 days for free. So it's 30 days of bug fixing for free. So any bugs that are within the original scope of the project, we make sure to get all those fixed up. So that is the end of the MVP process. So we go all the way through the Figma design, bubble development. And after that 30-day bug fix, we have a few options. We can start phase 2 planning. That's where I'd say a lot, definitely over half of our clients start already jump right into that phase 2. And where we do is we basically start right back over here, phase 2 strategy session, getting that phase 2 feature list here. And we basically go through the exact same thing again for the phase 2. Adding new features. A lot of times as we're building it out, we're figuring out, oh, there's all these other features that we hadn't even thought of that would be super valuable to this app. So that's where we can start with a phase 2. And then basically I just give you another proposal. Here is how much it's going to cost. Here is the timeline. And there you go. Also, when we're launching, I transfer over the app to you. So then you start, usually people start with the starter plan, which I think currently is $32 a month. So transfer it over to you. You upgrade to the starter plan. During the development period, we're paying for the monthly hosting fee. But when we transfer it over to you, you'd start typically with the starter plan. Sometimes people want to take the web app they built and make that native mobile app. That's another option as well. And then we also offer monthly maintenance plans depending on the size of the app. So I'll give you a quote if that's something that you would potentially be interested in. Sometimes owners are wanting to do the maintenance themselves and be able to manage themselves or their team. So that's totally optional. Depends what you want to do there. But if you're interested in that, just let me know. So that is the entire process. Tried to keep it as short as possible. I know it did get a little bit long, but let me know if you have any questions at all. If you're wanting to get a quote as soon as possible, get me over a general overview, either through a consultation with me, the MVP calculator, or put together something with ChatGPT, or just write it out as well. You can do that as well. And then I'll give you a cost and timeline estimate. If it makes sense, let's jump on a strategy session and start building that MVP feature list. So reach out to me if you have any questions at all. And I look forward to talking with you soon.